Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Square Foot Solutions, Boosting Revenue Without More Space, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2026 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Let's do this.
Yes.
Hey everybody, welcome. This is the final education session, so give yourself a big round of applause to get your blood flowing. All right, welcome. This is the Square Foot Solutions Boosting Revenue Without More Space panel. And remember the housekeeping slide. The handouts are available on the app. Please tell us how we did on the app, or there are also paper surveys on the ends of some of these tables. But the app is the easiest way to get your feedback directly to ABA. The recordings will be posted on BookWeb, so you can find the audio recording of this in every session. It'll be a few weeks probably because they need to format them and get them up. But this is also a reminder that if you don't speak into a microphone, future audiences won't be able to hear what you wanted to share. So please, when we get to the Q&A, we'll make sure that you speak into a microphone so we can record your curiosity and the answers. If we could all turn our cell phones to airplane mode, which I had not done because I was like, maybe they need to contact me. And then we'll have the questions. And as I said, we'll wait for the mic. Just remember the antitrust guidelines that we need to be careful not to be like the bad guys. So don't discuss price or pricing policies in this room. We can't plan any boycotts, sinister or otherwise, and we can't divide up the market in our discussions. And for more information, there's always more information on BookWeb. This is the important slide, our session objectives. We are hoping that this is an actionable session for you so that you can understand how your sales per square foot help inform smarter space decisions. So you're going to be finding data, analyzing it, and using it in your store. We want you to help learn practical ways to optimize your layout, inventory, and displays without expanding your space. We all wish we could add on to our stores, but not always possible. And we want you to leave with strategies to make your existing space more intentional and productive. And we want you to leave with inspiration, really. So we'll start off. This is our agenda. We'll do introductions. We'll do some kind of definitions and thinking about how to use the data, store layouts and traffic flow, talk about inventory management and returns. We'll talk about brand identity and engaging displays, so using your space effectively that way. And then we'll finally come together with a call to action, which is like a summary of the things we hope you take away. But we'll also have a Q&A so you can ask questions if there are things that you'd been hoping to learn but hadn't learned, or things you want to share with the room because you all have a lot of wisdom too. So introductions. Why don't we start here and we'll just go down the line. Does that sound good?
Thank you. Yeah. My name is Josh Christie. I am the co-owner of Print A Bookstore in Portland, Maine, which I'll also include is about a 2,500 square foot bookstore.
I'm Tegan Tagani. I'm your moderator today. I'm with Queen Anne Book Company in Seattle, Washington. We are about 2,400 square feet, which includes our office and receiving area.
I'm Chris Siqueira, and I'm from Lion's Tooth in Milwaukee, co-owner. My other co-owner is over there, Shelly, taking pictures. We have our zine around. Like if I put it, like please feel free to get one of that. That's kind of like our business card. We're 600 square feet, tiny in Milwaukee.
I'm Melissa Taylor, and I am the co-owner of eShaver Booksellers in Savannah, Georgia. And we are also about 2,300 square feet, including our receiving and office area. But we are in the garden level of a historic home in Savannah that was built in like 1843. So our shop is cut up into a bunch of tiny, weird rooms. So it's its own unique hassle.
I wish we could have a floor plan. But we're going to start with this idea of sales per square foot, thinking about the finances and the geography together, I guess. So how does someone want to take the question of how do you calculate sales per square foot?
I'll take that because I am a huge numbers nerd. Like this is like right in my wheelhouse. So basically what I've done in sections is go through and physically measure what we have in terms of shelf space. And then I pull sales reports for specifically that section. And then I look at sales per square foot. And we like everybody, we're selling a lot of romance, right? Like that's the thing. And so we were desperately needing to increase space for our romance section. So it was finding out how we could do that in our shop, what made the most sense. So I looked at a couple of sections that were near it to see how sales were doing in those sections. And the one that I ended up cutting down based on this information was the YA section. And so I will say that if you're looking at doing this, I would suggest looking at several months worth of data, to make sure that it's an actual trend. And then also looking at not just the sales per square foot, but looking at the total number of books that you're selling as well, especially in sections that there is a discrepancy between prices in the books that you're looking at. And it's not always 100%, a science, but it does give you an idea of how things are performing. And I think it's an important thing to look at.
And maybe, talking about like calculating your sales and assigning them to which sections, what point of sales do you use? Because I think that what point of sale system you use might determine how easy or how difficult it is to make a report.
I use Anthology. And so you can pull a report, set the time frame, set just the section. I mean, you can look at hardcovers, you could look at paperbacks. I mean, you can look at everything and you can get as much detail, I think, as you want.
We have Square, we don't pay the monthly fee, much less flexibility, and also increasingly, no more customer service if we don't pay the monthly fee. So we're kind of like, it is a very clunky thing for a bookstore to have, in my opinion. It was just because we couldn't afford anything else.
And what about your store?
So we use IBID.IE at Print, which actually for us is really useful, not only because it can pull all the reports that were mentioned, but every category, it has a space to put in the number of linear feet in that section. So it's really just a measure once, get that information. And unless you are frequently changing the sizes of your section, it's a really hard and fast number. At my old store, we had used Wordstock, which is now under the same ownership. And I know that it also has that option for categories.
That's very exciting. I just went, ooh.
So how do you determine your over and underperforming areas? Are you doing reports for the whole store? Or are you going with your gut and then finding the data?
For us, the big kind of bulk instrument, the sledgehammer we use is just looking at turn for the section. It's in some ways more useful than sales by a square foot, just to see how well a section is performing. I find that sales by linear foot or sales by square foot are much more useful in terms of upsizing or shrinking a section, but just knowing, like, is this a popular section in our store? Is it the right size roughly? Like, turn is really useful for that.
Yeah, I do all of our reordering, like for, daily sales and stuff. So when I pull the sales report for each day, I'm just looking at sort of trends that I'm seeing and what we're selling. And I just kind of take note of what seems to be performing super well and what seems to be waning, and just then I will look deeper into them. But it's really just kind of watching the daily sales reports, and also just kind of walking through the store and seeing how tight sections seem compared to other sections. And, so it's a lot of it is kind of visual for me, but the sales report daily.
And I would say talk to your customers, because like one of the, everybody has their lines in the bookstore. You go like, let me know if I can help you find anything, which you would say many times a day. But there's also, I'm so glad you found something. And then that usually starts a conversation. So we observe, like they came for kids' books, and then we have this music session that is, and then the dad's usually a little bored, sometimes, and then they go to the music books and go there, so that's a lot of just like, well, why did you get this kind of like, you're not asking that, but you're trying to find out why did people get different things.
Well, and that kind of leads to another question that just came to me now of like, do each of you shelve in your stores, or are you mostly like back room?
I shelve less than I used to in our stores, but I still am actively out on the floor, walking through, looking at things, talking to people. So I think I think I still am, even if I'm not like physically shelving, I think I'm still kind of engaged with what's happening out there.
I still touch pretty much everything, every sticker, every label, every candle. So
same with us. Like both of us are like on the floor all day. There is no back room.
Yeah.
So we're there doing everything, and we'll see, I don't know, I don't want to cause anxiety on anybody, but like see that, like a display is taken. We basically can see from where we're sitting, and you'll go there. And, the rule of, we're going to talk about that, but the rule of like, whatever is this way, people will buy, But yeah, so that's always the first thing to go. And then we go real quick. And
But I think that's just a good reminder that it's a benefit that if you do feel like you're feeling stuck in the back room doing a lot of tasks, to get out and really touch and see what your customers are seeing, to see, what's drawing their attention. And you can often tell by what's been moved, what's drawn their attention. How do you set your goals for your per square foot? Is it the same for every section?
No. I wish it could be the same for every section, but definitely not. We're kind of eccentric in what we do. And I would say that, there are a lot of things on our shelves that are simply there because we love them. And, we will sell a bunch of the best sellers in order to make room for those specific things that we might only sell once a year that will fit on our shelves. Or just like my business partner is obsessed with British literature that happens between World War I and World War II. So, so we will sell those books like once a year, but she's incredibly passionate about it. And so we keep those on the shelf, even though in my heart, my little accountant's heart, I know that those books are not moving, but that's okay.
Because it's part of your identity.
It absolutely is.
Later,
it's also relative to if you're looking at like unit sales versus dollar sales per square foot, because like we will sell to use the technical term, like a fuck ton of stickers every day. But
it's a technical term.
when every sticker only costs $3, it's not too hard even for a bookseller to do the math of, it takes selling 10 stickers to equal the price of one new David McCullough book. Like
we have that conversation all the time. It's like, we'll talk about sales for the day in terms of like, okay, we sold a lot of books, or we got to this point, but we did it sticker by sticker.
yes.
Or zine by zine.
Uh-huh.
Or zine by zine. There's like $1 zine by $1 zine.
Before we move on from this slide, this topic, could we talk a little bit about how you analyze the trends and then think about whether you're going to shift? Like, what are your tipping points of, I need to move this section? What are the things that tell you?
Sometimes it has nothing to do with the sales. So initially in our store, our mythology section was sort of in the same line of shelving as like religion, philosophy, mythology. And we'd have the people who would come in and put all the religions they didn't agree with in the mythology section. So like it became necessary to move the mythology section away from the religion section. And so that became a whole, like, how are we going to Jenga all of these sections and what makes sense flow wise? And we ended up putting the mythology section in this completely random place because literally it wouldn't fit anywhere else. We can't keep it on the shelf now. It was the happiest accident of moving something that we've ever had. So sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with sales. It's just necessity.
Do you remember what used to be there and if it moved?
So when the original owner of the store used to separate out all new hardcovers from paperback, And that just made me twitch because like when you're doing returns and like something comes out in paperback and like the hardcover's up there and then you miss returning the hardcover and it's a thing. So we decided we were going to switch that at the same time that we were switching sections around. And so where that used to be, it used to be the beginning of new hardcovers. And so it was just this kind of standalone little shelf it's literally you walk into our front door and it's kind of like the first thing that's in front of you as you walk in. And it's such prime real estate, and mythology ended up being the absolute perfect thing to put there.
Great. Any other ideas about what tipping points you found?
Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, I don't know how tiny people are for how.
We do a
Yeah. Like, who here is 600 to 1,000? All right. Anybody less than 600?
Okay.
There you go. So, and then like 1,000 for 2. So that's like
Majority.
most people,
Okay.
right? And more than 2. All right. And still.
You lucky bastards.
I think when we're really, really tiny, when we're really small, moving the book you need to give your customers a reason to come back. So we have some things that are like, you have the dog in the shop. That's a great reason, like, attractions, but we have like an art, wall that changes, and then we have like the best sellers in our shop are not the best sellers in that are the general bestsellers. We don't, a lot of books that sold a lot when the Obama book came out, every bookstore that was political like us made their like year. We still have Obama books at the shop because we don't even work with returns.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We try to get the best terms possible. So if we have a book that is not selling, we just keep moving that book around until somebody takes it, because we like the books that we have, so yeah.
We just sold a book that we'd had since 2019 this last weekend. So
The fun ones are the ones that are very expensive and you for us, it's like a bat,
Yeah.
And then like sometimes I'll get a text from Shelly. There's like, hallelujah. Like it's gone. I'm like, oh,
But
Those are always magical moments. Like when you are doing like the sales report and you see like that $90 decorating book that you must have had a mini stroke when you ordered, finally sold 6 years later.
ours was a book about bunnies. So if it wasn't going to sell pre-Easter, it was going to be next year. Since you mentioned tipping points, something I just wanted to mention after, like sometimes section changes are like vibes based. But if there's one thing I've learned over these like 22 years as a bookseller, it's looking at trends over time, like any really short period of time, or just comparing like this day this year to this day the last year, you're going to go insane because there's too many variables. So for us, it's not like an average number or a certain, like we have our goals for turn, but in terms of sales numbers, it is not that as much as it is this section has never performed over a year as well as the others, or more importantly, in terms of changing or moving sections, this one has been slipping compared to other sections, or we are seeing so much demand that like the numbers are skyrocketing and the shelves are really, really full that we need to expand it.
Or like you suddenly have a series with 6 books that's selling really well. And
Yeah, and
it
each of
takes
them's
up
like
a whole
800
shelf.
pages.
Yeah, exactly.
we've never been able to tap. We do a lot of graphic novel. Never been able to tap into manga because of that. Because like manga is like, we're gonna have like, if we choose, we're just gonna do one piece. It's gonna be the entire store.
And I'll say, as a children's focused bookseller within a general store, there are some sections in the kids section that don't turn well. Like if you look at them, you're like, why do you still have that section? But I think it's important to our identity and to, like, for example, our section on grief and death for kids. You want that right away when you need that. Like, I don't want to make somebody wait for that. So I have those, and I don't sell a lot, thank goodness, but I have them there when people need them.
Yes.
I guess this is kind of comparing Sorry, these are a little different from what I thought. When the slides don't match your notes. But we've talked about these things of comparing sections. We talked a little bit about fixtures that work and don't work. We'll get to that later. But like thinking about that in your store, are there places in your store that just seem like people don't ever seem to browse them? Like, is that called a dead zone, perhaps? And I just wanted to point out the picture here. This is a beautiful picture of Books and Books in Miami. And that's my husband. And I wanted to point out that they have very tall ceilings and they store books above the height that you can reach things as a customer. And it makes a beautiful visual. So sometimes you can be using the space, even though it's not turning, you're still using it as decor almost. And you're not having to use square footage on the floor because you're using the wall space and the ceiling space really. And yeah, using data to support tough decisions. That's when you're like, oh, I have loved this section or I've loved this book, but maybe I'll see how I do without it for a while. So store layouts and traffic flow, very important. There are always limitations like your store's layout. But I remember there was a really interesting, I think it was Josh, who had a really interesting data analysis to share about traffic flow.
Yeah. So one of our booksellers who was recovering from an injury, so they were a stationary, like not in the sense of journals, but stationary, and that were stuck behind the counter at the store, but still wanted to come in and still wanted to work, drew a heat map of our store, which is to say every customer that came in while they were at the counter, they mapped with a line on a blueprint of our layout where they were moving through the store and with kind of a circle where they were spending more of their time. And it was a really, really interesting piece of data because we could really see what these, as you said, dead zones were, or where everyone was going, or even something that we might have intuited over time of like people seem to navigate our store counterclockwise rather than clockwise, like just that information that's really, really interesting. And then we could really see, you map that information over your sales data and it's all like, oh, people are stopping in these sections and looking because they're actually buying stuff from there. So it's really useful to see where is popular in your store. If you don't have someone that can sit behind the counter and do that, like we're in New England where everything's salted. So it's very easy to see on the floor where people are. Like, if anyone has not read Robert Moore's book, On Trails, he talks about desire paths. And I don't know how many people are familiar with that, but it's the idea of like outside of planned points of like ingress and movement, if often like through a field or through a trail, you'll see like where it's worn down, where people decide they want to go naturally. Like it's that same kind of thing where you're seeing, oh, no matter how I intend for people to move through my store, they don't care. They're going to move through how they want to. And knowing what that is in a way that's more kind of like to your point of being a data nerd, more data driven than just intuiting what people like to do is really useful for making decisions.
Mm-hmm. And like the idea of this slide of what goes where, of putting prime real estate for high margin items or high velocity items or high price items, even of like, if there's something you need to move, put it somewhere where people are automatically going anyway. So everybody will see it. So hopefully the right customer will see it.
So there's like in that slide, there's like the reason that I selected that picture of the stickers. The sticker game changed a lot for us when we separated them by price. So all of these here are $3. All of these here are $4. All of these here. And we got this fixture from another bookstore that we didn't really know what to do. And that was you know how children have the thing where you put the words, a word checker. So it's like super cheap solution for stickers. And I wanted to share that with people because it was such a mess. It has been, and that really helped a lot. So it's not the high margin, or we do make a lot of stickers ourselves. So it is high margin, but that's the reason I put that in.
I'm going to piggyback on the sticker thing. So our store, in the time that I've been associated with it, has changed very dramatically in the amount of business that we're doing. And we're very lucky that we've changed in the positive direction in the amount of business that we're doing. So when we first decided to bring like stickers and buttons into the store, we got this cute little fixture that had these different bins in it, and then people could just stand there and look at stickers or whatever. And literally the only place to put it was this one specific spot. And the top part of our store, was originally the walled garden of the house, and now it's been enclosed. And so we have inside the store exterior windows, like an exterior bay window that used to be on the house, and then other windows of the house in there. And then there's steps that go down into the lower part of the store, which is under the original house. So the only place to put this fixture was right next to where the stairs go down into the other part of the store. And at the time when we weren't crazy busy, this was fine, and people could just stop there and look in these stickers, right? And then it became like a choke point in the store, and so we needed to do something different, and we invested in a fancy sticker spinner too, that we could separate them all out, and people could just, and it has changed the traffic flow through the store, which is incredibly helpful, but just the amount of stickers we're selling, because people are not searching through this bin, which seems cute and, quirky, but they can actually see what they are without struggle.
Having to touch.
Yeah.
They know the price.
Everything's there.
Well, and that's also empowering the customer, and also hopefully helping your staff, that you're not having to like fix it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
So it's win-win. So what goes where? We talked a little bit too when we were preparing this about ways to draw people to what might be a dead zone naturally. Like, how do you lure them into your little secret nooks or the places that you want to entice them to make it a profitable section?
Just again, because our store is sort of quirky in the way that it's laid out. We have these weird built-in cabinet things. And so we have been trying to just like figure out what's going to work in these spaces. Like we tried doing like a bunch of sidelines and candles and stuff in there, and it was fine. But then we just decided to start really going hard in on themes in these places. And like we did a Gilmore Girls display that we've had up for months, and we're not taking it down anytime soon because we're selling the hell out of Gilmore Girls stuff. Like apparently our shop is like Gilmore Girls catnip. I don't know. But just really kind of doubling down on these displays that really capture the feeling of your store and the quirkiness of your store. I mean, like we have because we're in the South, we have an etiquette section. Like it's so bizarre. It's just these like couple of little shelves on this random wall that nothing else would fit on because of like light switches and all the stuff. And we're very loose with the things that we classify as etiquette. We put all kinds of stuff in the etiquette section, and we can't keep things in that section. It's like it's a weird thing that works for us, but like highlight your weird.
Yes.
Etiquette. New England would never. Yeah,
I know. I'm from the North, and when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, excuse me."
Yeah, we had, again, like dead space just because it was wall space we weren't using. And I just got IKEA shelves and screwed them in, and some really inexpensive 8x10 picture frames. And in the picture frames, I swap out the colophons for different small presses that we want to focus on. It's so incredibly successful, especially because like I am a huge advocate for Indian small presses anyway, but they do such a great job of having books with like unified cover design and stuff like that. It makes such amazing displays and gives us a chance to highlight, I'm also of the mind that like indie bookstores, independent publishers, like it's really important that we support them. And it's so cool to see people discovering not only that they love like a book or an author, but they love an imprint or they love a press.
And Chris, I've been in your store, and I don't think there are any dead zones because everything is so vibrant. You've done some really interesting thing with art incorporated into your store.
Yeah, one I think the I don't know if I put a picture of we got from comic book shops bins, like the idea of bins of things that you look like this. So we have all the zines, and it looks like a record store. So everybody's like looking like that at those books, and it's a lot of the comics go there two. And then we have on the wall all the local art, local artists. And that also emphasizes like the experience. That is like, we have a thing called Forma Stone in our shop that is, we even put it in the zine, is what John Waters calls the polyester of brick. So it's not the most appealing look. I mean, I love it, but most people with better taste than me don't. So, but we started like putting the t-shirts and our totes up there, you know, because I was kind of like, I don't want to cover the Forma Stone. And now I'm like, okay, I'm going to cover the Forma Stone. I even had like somebody in a book club say like, good job covering this Forma Stone. I'm like, we like the Forma Stone. But yeah, but it's like, so we don't have, but we do have one thing that is like, we're there. Do we have a little bar? So that's where the human bookseller is going to be at, right? And then over here, nobody wants to go in front of us to look over here. There's no convincing. There's nothing we can put there to make people want to shop with their butt in our face. So that's the free session. So that's where you get the cards. That's where you get the free stickers, where you get the free zines, whatever is over there. And that's the, you know, if you have a session, a place in your shop that doesn't, no matter what you do, that's where we put our special orders and, you know.
I was gonna kind of piggyback off like weird walls and such. So again, because of the layout of our store, we have this one section in the back where a doorway has been kind of closed off between two rooms. And on the other side of the wall, we have bookshelves that go all across it. But on the one side of the wall, we have a typewriter in our store that we allow people to like come in and write messages, and then they can put them on the wall. Of course, there's some oversight of what goes on the wall. Right now, it's a lot of Taylor Swift lyrics, if we're going to be completely honest. But that is like kind of the one space that we've specifically used as dead space, but it's something that brings people into the store and then they spend money in the store. So it's like you don't have to use every inch of space in your store with necessarily product to sell if you have something that's going to bring people in that will get them to buy other things as they're in the store. And also the other kind of weird thing that we do where we have like the handrails that go down the steps into the lower part of our store. We hang tote bags all over those because they've got all these like curly Q like things in there. So we hang tote bags all over that. All over our cash wrap, we put nails and hang things all over the bottom of our cash wrap. We use every possible square inch of hangy space that we can.
Yeah. And even if like looking outside of your store for square footage, like show of hands, like, has anyone in this room never seen a picture of the Books Are Magic wall outside of their store? Like, that is a brilliant use of space. And I was at the Charm You Can't Replicate panel this morning. I don't know if anyone else was, but someone was talking about the number of photographs they have customers take of the fixtures they put into their bathroom, which is not going to be selling space at all either, right? It's just, you can extend your brand. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit with branded merchandise and stuff like that, but you can extend your brand outside of your 600, 1,200, 2,000 square feet.
We put a what do you call it, mural outside too. But the most interesting thing is like people don't seem to care about the mural that much. But the artist who did the mural, that was the first mural she ever did. And we have a lot of her stuff in the shop. So when somebody buys a sticker, I'll say, oh, this is Chandler. She did the mural outside. And that was the first mural she ever did. And then they go and take pictures and put online. You know, like people like to hear stories, you know.
Mm-hmm. Such a good point. That story is our whole point, right?
Yeah.
And I just show these two pictures of our store, that are using the space behind our front desk, that we have the slat wall. And sometimes, you know, it's not accessible to customers because we're in front of it. But so we'll do things to be kind of like a dramatic thing, but it's usually actually storage. Like we had bought a lot of cartons of the Always Remember for the holidays, and we didn't really have enough places to store it. So we thought, make an impact wall.
Mm-hmm. Like it.
And here's a picture of Lion's Tooth to give an idea that Preeti took. So you see
and that is my husband.
Hey!
I'm not sure. Is that Brock? I don't know.
I think it
Yeah.
might be. And to just kind of give you a sense of the scale of our bookstores, like, so you see on the left, we see Chris's beautiful store, and then you see the beautiful Elliott Bay Book Company in Seattle, which has multiple levels and, giant rafters, and they have a lot of space to play with. They have a whole dedicated event space downstairs. A lot of us don't have that. So Krein, who's one of the store owners, is also an engineer and put all of our bookcases on rolling casters, so when we have events we can move them.
Same in our store.
But
Yeah,
then
ours is
rolling.
we also had to find a carpet stretcher because our carpet's stretched. So thinking about the data, how we use what we've learned to manage our inventory and think about returns if we do them, or what we're going to carry around like a sandwich board. So how do you decide when to cut a section, or to combine sections maybe, or just like completely eliminate?
I'm a big proponent for returns. Like, I worked for Borders for 12 years, and anybody who worked for Borders will tell you we got a giant, massive pull list every single month for doing returns. So I just have, that is just what I'm programmed to do. So I really do enjoy doing returns. And I think it's very, very helpful in just moving sections around. Like when you pull some stuff out and loosen sections up, and then you can change what's faced out or add more face outs, or do it really does make a difference in the health of your sections. So we have a regular return schedule that we follow. So we do every couple of months we return sections, and we have a time period of when we do the returns for. So it's very regimented, just because that's the way that my brain works. I think that does make a large impact, because I can see even in the sales reports, after we've done a return in a section and it's freshened up and people are seeing new things that they might not have seen that were spined out before, that our sales increase in that section. And I think it's good for your bottom line, because you're getting the credits back from the publishers. You do have to take into account your shipping costs, so don't go crazy, obviously. But I think it's just healthy for your store in general.
If you're working, there's another distinction that we work differently. Mm-hmm. We don't work with releases, and we don't work with the seasons. Okay. We work with the books that we like, and we buy a lot of back stock, and I think that actually sets us apart from other stores, being as tiny as we are, because if you're a fan of the MC5 and you want a book about the MC5, you don't care if it was published today or 4 years ago. You know what I mean? So that's the people who go to our, so that's ends up, you're saying, what are the things that live there forever? The MC5 lives there forever. We can't sell enough of that book. Mm-hmm. And that is also nice for small publishers, because, it's such a wasteful industry, So we we have a Clarice Lispector book club. New Directions is not pushing Clarice Lispector right now, but it's the best writer in the world. So we need to do it, So I think that kind of sets apart. And then somebody goes oh, I found this here and I was reading it casually and it's the best ever. So it's, so I think that's why returns don't make sense to us.
Right. And I will say too, we don't do stacks and stacks of bestsellers, or we wouldn't order that, the Charlie Mackey book in that quantity, because we just don't have the space for it. So we are very much kind of singular onesie backlist heavy as well on our, and I think that's what, that's the feeling for our store. Cause it's because my co-owner and I, as I said, are kind of quirky people, and we just some ridiculous random books that you're not going to see at every bookstore, because they have, been out for 40 years and, one person is reading it a year. But I wish we had the space to do stacks and stacks of things. It just doesn't translate to us.
We can't either. Yeah.
well, if you're an MC5 fan and a Backlist fan, Please Kill Me by Legs McNeil, best book on punk music ever written.
And it will sell every time.
It will.
Another one that sells like, I'm like, did anybody not read this book? Like
tons, yeah, based on our sales too. To answer your question about like when we know it's time, again, like I look at the longer term, so looking at trends in our store, and anyone whose point of sale system can run these reports of turn or sales by square foot for your sections. Like what we do is just sort that by highest to lowest sales, and the lowest performing ones, got to make some hard decisions. Some of them, it is just reducing a section that doesn't work for us. Some of it, and a lot of our journey over 10 years of having print has been determining like what we decided we needed to have as a section just because we were a bookstore and not because it was something we cared about. Big nerds at our store, like not a ton of sports fans. Why we had a sports section for as long as we did, I'm not sure. Those all live in biography or history now. As like lefty indies, also a business section used to exist, does not exist anymore. Like they were not strong performers for us. They didn't speak to our customers. And again, as you said earlier, that decision wasn't a hard one to make, but it's so much easier when it's borne out by data. You're like, oh, perfect. I can get rid of this section I've kind of hated since we owned the store.
Yeah. I mean, to that point, when my co-owner bought the business from the original owner, right? We're a Southern bookstore. So she had a very large Civil War section, and like we very quickly cut that section and moved those books into just a general wars and military history section with everything else, because that wasn't what we wanted our bookstore to be presenting. Like we don't glorify the Civil War because we live in the South. We, like that just kind of changing the image of what Southern bookstores are and just what's important to you as a store. So that had nothing to do with data, but that had to do everything with vibe. But
there's part of it is vibe and part of it is like mission. Yeah. Like we're a mission driven store. There are books that we want people to read. So we have like books about Palestine. We're going to have a bunch of books about Palestine. We're going to have books in the languages that become available for people. We'll have books for kids. So because like when you follow trends, you got to be very careful if you're tiny. This is for the tiny ones, because your personality is more important than the trends. Mm-hmm. It is. If you were talking about a friend of mine who's a skateboarder and he can't have certain brands in his skateboarder shop because his loyal customers are going to think they're lame, which I don't know anything about. That's a nightmare of a world for me. But, it's kind of like it is what we... So, what is our mission? Our mission is support local artists, and we will support, we don't care what they're writing about. We're going to have that session forever. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make money. It really doesn't, but it's part of the mission that we have.
Yeah. Some stores' whole identity is being lame, as far as I can tell. And if that works for them, then that's great. But if not, then
embrace your lameness if that's what you're going for. So there's a thing on our notes here at the bottom that's managing emotional attachment to sections and inventory. And I'm not
very good at it. May have noticed.
Well, I just wanted to talk on that really quickly because I'm, such a proponent for doing returns. When I do a return pull list, I will look through it for the things that I'm emotionally attached to and just cross those off. And then I let my co-owner look through it as well for the things that she's emotionally attached to as well. And we cross those off. And our discussion with those things is like, okay, so if we're that passionate about them, we need to move them into our staff pick section, start championing those books, and then we'll start selling them, or we won't. And if we don't at that point, then we're going to have to learn to let go. It's difficult, but it makes sense. But I mean, so if you have these things in your store and they are underperforming, champion them in a different way and they'll start performing for you. Because if you are passionate about something, that translates obviously to the customers that you're talking to. And it's one of the reasons people come to independent bookstores is because we're passionate about things. So you'll be able to sell those, crazy copies of weird between the war fictions too.
And so these pictures kind of show the idea of, if you love it and you don't want to pull it, put a shelf talker on it or make a display around it. You can use a trend maybe to pull some things that have been underloved. And also, I bet you have some great things to share about consignment and maybe one-on-one with people after, because I do think that that's a very different thing. If your store does consignment, you have to, decide when are you going to set the terms for things and when are you going to, if you do non-returnable, what are you going to do?
We can definitely talk to anybody who wants to talk about consignment. We've recently redid that system for that. And it's like, I think we have insights for that. The reason for we have like one employee is an artist and he made that drawing with our mascot. And we have a wall. You talked about your wall, your impact wall. Our impact wall, what's behind us, we have original art by cartoonists and we have things that tell the story of it's like a museum of the shop. Thank you notes from somebody that is like, famous cartoonist, whatever. We put all this stuff behind us. And the reason there, we put the t-shirt right there so you can own this. We imply the value of the original art and you can own it by buying a t-shirt that you've seen the original piece for that. So that's like the idea. You can take a little bit of Lion's Tooth home with you,
Which I did.
And I do want to say one more thing is like we do for the tiny ones. We do a lot of like special orders. So that's how we get, like if somebody special, like our loyal customers special order a book, we'll get 2 of them and then we give it to the person and then we see how it does in the shop. And that's how we learn a lot about the trends too.
We do that as well. When we have people that shop with us all the time and they come in to special order a book, we'll order one for the shop as well because it's someone who's been like a customer with us and we want to know what people who shop with us all the time want to read.
I've moved on to the your space tells your story page. That just the idea of leaning into your weirdness, and we have to move quickly. I'm sorry, this is such a great discussion. I could feel like I could stay here until my flight tomorrow, but so another idea of highlighting what customers can't find online, like your art, for sure that they wouldn't find it anywhere else, even if you might offer it online on your website. And that letting your brand identity guide what earns your floor space or your window space. And if we get time, I want to talk about your blow up of your,
Yes.
But we also talked about making it easy for customers to find what they want themselves, of clear displays, readable signage that just helps every square foot do the work without your bookseller having to do quite as much work. Visible spines, accessible shelves. One of our kind of training things that I have to remember to train our new bookseller on is if you have a shelf talker for something, it can just be spine out. And then if we have 4 copies of something, that should be face out because we want the cover to talk for it because we don't have a shelf talker to talk for it. And a reminder that progress isn't about perfection. It's about intentional choices. Before we get to that, let's just do Josh's story. Do you mind?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to go back to that slide, I don't know if people will be able to read it from where they are, but right there. Yeah. So
On the far right.
there is a sign in our window on the far right that if you cannot read says, quote, "They have too much weird stuff in there," end quote, attributed to a passerby on the street as they walked by our open door on a Wednesday afternoon. And it is something that someone said as they were walking by the store, which they are, I don't know about too much, but they are right about. We have a lot of weird stuff at our store. I would quibble on too much. I think we have the right amount. But it was something that really spoke to me just as kind of the same way you see that sign on a sandwich board that says, "Come to the place the guy had the worst sandwich he's ever had." If anyone's seen that before. But I was like, I really like that. I think it works for us. And our social media manager made a graphic for Instagram, which looked just like that, which immediately took off with our customers. And a long way of getting to what I did, well, I'm going to take this to our local print shop and blow it up and put it in our window because it will speak to people when they're walking by. It really does. We get comments on it every day. People love it. It does a great job, like our Gaza stickers and like our pride flag in our window of like setting expectations before people even come into the store, which is helpful both in bringing people in and keeping some people out of the store. So that's really useful.
Yes.
And, all of that to say, like my broader point with that, is that we have these great big floor to ceiling windows in the front of our store. And I think for a lot of stores, the real estate they use in their windows is the bottom 3 feet. Because if you have 1 or 2 shelves of things face out in the window, that's great. And you want people to be able to see into your store. But there's all this space that you aren't using that either with murals and window markers or with signs, you can really utilize that space. Way more people every day are going to see the outside of your store than the inside of your store. Mm-hmm. So it's really useful to do that. And then the other thing I really advocate for is, especially if it's something that really works on Instagram or digital on your social media, like everyone here or their staff is making graphics with Canva or making graphics to go on their website. And it is so inexpensive to get posters printed. They look so good. They draw so much attention and they're so much more impactful than, God love it, all the stuff we get from publishers in terms of blow ups. Like it's great to have blown up book covers and stuff like that, but having something that was made in your store that speaks to your staff and your customer and your store's brand, like none of that stuff you're getting from publishers has your logo on it, which you can have all over the place. Like Windows is great for that. One of our employees made a like movie poster style poster for each of our book clubs, which permanently live across the windows in the front of our store and draw lots of attention. You can do a QR code as well to bring people in. As sick as we all are of QR codes, they still do work. And yeah, I think not just in your windows and posters, but like shelf talkers, your front counter, the back of your register computer, anywhere you can put a sign. You've got this resource, and it seriously, like a poster that size, which I think is 18 by 24, costs $8 to print at our local print shop. Like that is paid back so many times.
Excellent. So for summation, I would like each of you to think about what new to you form of analysis are you going to use to determine how at least one section in your store is doing. Just start small. Think about like one part of your store that you are curious about and how you're going to analyze how it's doing, make a little change, and then see if it's worked. So explore one new idea that maybe you got today to help an underperforming section do better. So you could try pulling. Even if you don't do returns, maybe you pull them to put them in a sale section. Face outs, a new display, wearing a t-shirt with things on them, all sorts of things, interpretive dance, and use an analysis of one of your analyses tools to determine if it helped. And it could just be like, how many did I sell? And then set a goal to identify and experiment with using a dead zone better. I would love for each of you to have one place that you'd kind of given up on in your store serve you better. So whether by doing something eye-catching there or by making it useful for storage. And before we kind of all get into the excitement of questions, just please do fill out the app when we finish today. I would really appreciate the feedback. Let us know what you enjoyed and what we could do better next time. And let's do some Q&A. And we have a microphone, so let's make sure that we speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, I don't really have much of a question. Oh, wait.
Sorry, what was the question? Back up a slide. Call to action. Okay, yes.
Mine isn't so much of a question as a method that we learned as a store probably 5 years ago for space, and I thought I'd share it with you because it's very beneficial for us. We're about 2,000 square feet, and we have our space on the shelves, and each book for us has to pay its rent. So we've done the math, we've measured all of our shelves, and in order because a book takes up roughly like an inch on the shelf, whatever, for a book to earn its space in the store, it has to turn over at least once every 3 to 4 months. Obviously there are exceptions to it with like children's as you were talking about grief picture books earlier, there are exceptions. We have a large native culture section because we're in Arizona. But so we just do, if a book doesn't sell like on our fiction shelf for 3 to 4 months, because that's just our space, we don't reorder it back into the store. And it's sometimes there's the emotional attachment, but you have to let those things go. So that's another thing people can do.
Excellent. Thank you. Good tip.
Okay. So God, I really talk loud. I'm sorry. My question is, so I have never done, please don't boo me, the whole
Never.
Math of the book on a shelf and what it's called. I was so happy to have something on a shelf that never even occurred to me to do that.
That's why you're here to learn.
Yes. So how do you go about looking at your shelves? And I know that there's stuff that's not selling. I know that. But as for doing the math and looking at your shelf and going, okay, that's not selling. How can we sell that, get it off the shelf so we can make room for other stuff? And what does it cost? How do you go about doing that math?
So it's a pretty straightforward formula that we use, which might be similar to the one you were mentioning based on your return schedule. So when we run a returns report, and we are, I will say, like maybe atypically aggressive in terms of doing returns because I didn't work at Borders, but I also worked at a chain that really liked doing returns. I will run a report based on invoice date. So based on when we got a book in, anything that we've had for 3 months that we just brought in that we haven't sold any copies of, or anything that we have sold in the past but have had for 6 months or more without selling a copy. That's the report that I have the computer spit out. And then based on those extenuating circumstances, I go through line by line, remove some titles. And that is the starting point for our returns polls. Mm-hmm. And for anyone that is also like overwhelmed by looking at like when to schedule returns, if you don't do it at a regular time on your calendar, I always try to schedule publisher returns for when we're meeting with the rep for the next season. Mm-hmm. It's super useful because A, you know that credit is coming in when you're placing your new front list order. And B, it means that it's going to be about every 3 to 6 months. So
I think there's a follow-up. Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's just, we have 5 more minutes.
Come up afterwards and talk to us. Yeah. Hi. So our store is about 1,000 square feet, and that is including our office and cash wrap area. And one thing I think we're really struggling with is large books that do well over the holidays, like cookbooks. Mm-hmm. And then they don't really do anything throughout the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So like our cookbooks are on this really beautiful like cascade shelf. So they're very face out. And so during the holidays, they do super well for us there. But then now that the holidays are over, we don't have a lot of room elsewhere for these big ass cookbooks. And so I'm kind of struggling finding that balance of what to do with them throughout the year.
I have a great idea from another bookstore that they have a January books by the pound sale. And you set whatever you think is going to work and people just books by the pound. So you would have to figure out what poundage would work for you, but that's one idea.
I was just going to say it may be something you look at bringing in just seasonally too. If you know they're only selling at a specific time of year, then you can, kind of create a spreadsheet of things that that will sell for you at that time. And then just at a certain time in the year, order those in seasonally to have those for when you're going to sell them.
Lion's Tooth is transformed into a gift bookshop during the holidays, completely transformed. Like physically, we move stuff and make new sessions. And cookbooks, the way that I see it, if you're going to the shop to buy a cookbook, you're not gonna mind kneeling down or, you're looking for a cookbook. And usually they're like self-explanatory spines. Just put them closer to the floor and don't worry about facing them out. I feel like that's a very intentional purchase. So
it's like the milk at the back of the grocery store. You're going to go in.
Yes,
so it doesn't need the.
Yeah. So we are also in an old building with like lots of rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of chopped up, which makes it very charming and fun, but
It
a little
does.
challenging. And I'll say that some of our challenges are not exactly a dead zone, but like a corner. We've got some little nooks and crannies, but then the bottoms of the shelf, like the bottom rack of the shelf.
Yeah.
Now in our fantasy section, that's where we put Sarah J. Maas because those girlies will find it. But like sometimes we struggle with like, anything at mid-level and above will sell, but it's the lower shelves. Have you guys thought of anything that to kind of help with that?
We put a lot of the local authors that we carry because we're mission driven. We put them lower. We put T-shirts. We use it almost for like storage, because you're right. Like it's very hard. Like they don't sell that much. Like if it's down there. So I think down there, the best thing to do is to put things that are either like an intentional thing that the person's going to go into the shop to find, foreign language, cookbook books, or stuff that you want to carry, but that doesn't do so
And
well.
related sidelines really work well. Like SCB has some great Tolkien puzzles. Clarkson Porter has some great Dungeons and Dragons puzzles. Like those would live. Thinking of a sci-fi section, like those would definitely work there.
But if you want to keep that real estate for books, like if you don't want to put like sidelines in there, like you want to keep the shelf space for titles, do you have backer things that push your titles forward?
Into the mic? Oh, I can repeat.
Okay.
She's used golf club boxes.
Okay. I mean, that works. I mean, because we use the shelves all the way down, regardless of, how far they are to the floor. Like we do have some bookcases that have kicked out bottoms. So like but I know not everybody can afford to have new shelves built. And trust me, I'm one of those people that can't afford to have new shelves built. But I would just say, put backers behind things where you can, use more face outs at the bottom and put like individual backers kind of behind those to make sure that they're standing up. And that's the best solution I have. But I mean, it works for us, and we do use that full real estate.
And I'm very sorry, but it is time. But please, with your questions, come up after and ask us. And we also have
You want to answer this last one?
Oh, okay.
I was just going to say that what we did for something like that with the lower shelving, I ran LED strip lights underneath. It lit it up, and people instantaneously looked down there. So we only have the bottom 3 shelves lit. Everything else is lit by the lights at the high ceiling.
I love that. That's awesome.
A great idea.
A great
Vegas
idea.
style. Yes, thank you. And please come talk to us. We have our cards too, and our contact information is on this final slide. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!